That's excellent. All right. I almost wish we ended on that, but I do want to do three pieces of sound real quick. Let's start with Pete Buttigieg. This is funny. A lot of people have been, look, I think that, as I've said many times, I think Pete Buttigieg has emerged as the greatest overall threat to, if Joe Biden becomes the nominee of the Democratic Party or president, we're going to have every fight imaginable, but it would simply be an exhausted expression of a lot of people who want desperately to go back to what they deem to be normal. And I think even as we totally disagree with it, we should have sympathy for that. And there's a huge fight ahead. I think with Buttigieg, there's the huge fight ahead, but there's this depressing, collapsed reality of such a young candidate reaffirming such dead ideas. I think there's something uniquely, historically problematic with that. And I think, he's been really getting beat up the last couple of days. Let's just play these two clips because it's an interesting juxtaposition. Kyle Kulinski had a tweet out earlier, which was I think was something, I'm paraphrasing, but like the sleeper surprise of 2020 campaign so far is that I don't hate Julian Castro. And I think that is exactly my same sentiment. Julian Castro, who does not have a good record at Obama's HUD at all, has been someone who's actually spoken incredibly clearly on racism and policing, on the border and immigration and humanity of immigrants. And I've appreciated some of the things he's put on the board. And here he is. I think this is not unique to him. I think everybody clearly does not like Pete Buttigieg up there in the primary. Here he is talking about Pete Buttigieg. And then we have an old back in time piece where Pete Buttigieg appears to be sharing Julian Castro's perspective.
Campaign. I think we're first or second in terms of the highest percentage of small dollar donors. And my average contribution is something like $20 for the lifetime of the campaign. I don't take any PAC money, no federal lobbyist money, no big oil and gas money, and so forth. All of us have gotten contributions that are $1 and contributions that are $2,800, right? But it's what do you do with that? And when it comes to Mayor Buttigieg, I do think that it's concerning that he started off this race just a few months ago saying that he was basically all in with Medicare for all, and then he flip-flopped. And now says that he's not for that. And a few months ago on the debate stage... Do you think that's in part
because of his donors or his donor base?
I think that raises a legitimate question of what is influencing in such a quick time, such a short time, when you have these big health insurance industry contributions to his campaign and other campaigns. What's influencing that flip-flop?
Okay, well, I think it's a good point. I know that the current Pete Buttigieg would strenuously object with a very over-rehearsed, contorted body language of a 2004 Democrat. But here's a younger Pete Buttigieg running for state treasurer in the state of Indiana. By the way, this race he lost by over 20 points with his supposed specialty in winning in the Midwest. Here's Pete Buttigieg in the time machine on campaign contributions.
Anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything you had in mind?
I think today is the day when campaigns release their finance numbers, and everybody puts their cards on the table for the last quarter. And it's highlighted something I think is really important in this race, and is very important certainly to my campaign. And that is that I think we need to get special interest money out of the treasurer's race. Right now, there are almost no rules constraining the ability of, say, Wall Street banks to pump large sums of money into state treasurer's campaign. And having looked at my own finances and seen what's happening in my opponent's race, I've noticed that thousands of dollars are flowing in from some of the biggest banks in the country in order to defeat me. It's not just that they're trying to defeat me that I'm bothered by this, but very early on in this campaign, I made a decision that I wasn't going to accept any money from a bank that could be doing business with the state treasurer's office. I think it creates a conflict of interest. It creates an appearance, at the very least, that can smell like pay to play.
All right, so I think we have it. But I guess, to be fair, which is that phrase that I hate because I don't necessarily like to be fair, maybe not appropriate for Indiana Treasury Secretary, but totally appropriate for President of the United States. What do you make of Buttigieg? Do you have any thoughts on him for a moment, or not even worth it?
I'm always hesitant. I worked quite a while with Pete Buttigieg's father,
Right.
a Marxist intellectual, a professor of literature at Notre Dame University. Remarkable that Notre Dame had a Marxist professor, openly Marxist, a follower and a user of the work of Antonio Gramsci as his great influence. Pete Buttigieg grew up in a household he knows very well what leftist thinking is. He had a teacher in his own father. My understanding is they were close. So he knows exactly what he is choosing to keep as far away from himself as he can. So you've got a person, there is no ambiguity, there's no ignorance, he wants to be like the center of the Democratic Party. He has made the decision not to go to a left that he's very familiar with, that he was deeply close to, like a son to a father. And so I think it's important to understand this is a centrist Democrat by conviction, by choice, and my understanding is he's been that way a long time. This is not a recent conversion. This is not an adjustment to he has imagined himself being the young centrist Democrat. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that the center can hold, disconnect itself from the old people like the Clintons or even the Obamas, and that a new young version of this is what he wants to be.
The same thing in the new packaging.
That's right.
Right.
But people should not, this is not an adjustment being made to get through a tortuous primary race. This is who he is. He is a centrist, and he has been all along, and he's chosen not to be part of the left in any way, whether it's his religious commitments, his service in the military, and all of that. That's who he is.
That's who he is. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.